Good afternoon, Georgia.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think you were on mute for a little while.
Yeah. When it plays the music, it automatically.
I had mute you out. I said, okay. I think he's talking and he doesn't realize he's on mute. No problem.
Okay.
Look, guess what it is? It is a brand new year. GA for Justice in 2023. Welcome to GA for Justice. This is Georgia Allen, and I'm coming to you live from WVDM, the best of the 757. And as always, we want to just welcome you to the noonday show every Thursday at 12 o'clock. And again, I am Georgia F. Allen, your noonday host of GA for Justice. As always, we want to thank Mr. Henderson Vaughn, aka Captain 85, aka the Dream Maker, who makes this show possible. It allows us to bring to our listening audience a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, and a conversation for transformation. Because we want to make sure that the information we provide to our listening audience is valid and it's information that they can use in their everyday life. We are excited, so excited to have with us today Ms. Juanita Williams. Juanita is a political operative and organizer. I mean, she's out there. She's doing it. She served in the U.S. Navy for 24 years and retired as an aviation machinist mate chief in 2009. She is a resident of Virginia Beach and has been a resident here since 1997. Juanita worked on local, state, and federal elections. Juanita formerly served as the Constituent Services Director for our former Congresswoman, Elaine Luria, from 2019 to 2023. And in that capacity, she managed all three of the second congressional district offices, providing the necessary assistance for the help that was needed for all of the constituents from the federal agencies. And so she worked with us constituents, which is something that is so important. And so we're going to bring her on to share with you a little bit more about herself. There's some other things, but I'm going to ask her questions about those because I think that it will be helpful in getting the information out to the listening audience with regards to legislative services and what it means and how important it is to our community. And today's show, we're going to just call it House on Fire. Many of you know that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in Washington, D.C. And so I wanted to bring somebody here that could talk about what happens when the U.S. Congress cannot pick a Speaker of the House. What happens and what doesn't happen. So with that being said, we are happy to bring on our very first guest of 2023, Juanita Williams. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I just lost my last.
Oh no, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
She was doing. I don't know if she. It's nothing on my. That's on her end.
Check your mic.
Did she press a button or something?
Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Your microphone.
Did she got a headset on?
I don't see one.
I thought she was because she was.
Yeah, she muted. Okay, I see it.
She muted it.
Yeah, she's muted.
Mm-hmm.
Our guest has accidentally muted herself, and so I'm going to see if she can see our chat to unmute. You are muted. Your microphone is muted.
You muted
We
the
can't
button.
hear you.
She can't hear us.
Press the button.
Let me see.
Okay, let me text her to let her know that she's
Try it
muted.
now. Yeah. Say something. She can't hear me.
Can you hear us? Mm. It doesn't look like she's muted now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna send a quick text, check your mic. Oh wow! Of course, we start off the year and we run into technical issues and technical difficulties. But guess what? We're gonna get that cleared up. We may need
Right.
to have her sign out and sign back in.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm.
Okay.
Okay. But anyway, as I just announced, we do have someone who has been working basically locally, but also from time to time as she's working with our congressperson, as she worked with our congressperson on Capitol Hill, locally providing constituent services to all of the local offices here in the Hampton Roads area. She served, of course, as the constituent services director. And for those who don't know what that means the people who live in the district can call in and talk to the constituent services director regarding concerns that they may have. And there could be any number of concerns that you might have with regards to what's happening with your tax dollars. Um, Tell me something about the recent budget that was written. Um, Tell me how the money is divided up, even when it comes down to the district. You know, is it going to Virginia Beach? Is it going to Norfolk? Is it going to Chesapeake? Is it going to the Eastern Shore? So, a person who is the constituent services director can answer those types of questions. Um, Hopefully, she'll be able to pop back in just a second, and we'll be able to allow her to share with you knowledge that we don't have. That's the thing. We don't have all the knowledge, so we invite people to come on that can share. Okay, there
I
she
can
is.
hear you all.
We can hear
Okay,
you.
we can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me now.
We can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm excited that you're here, and I know sometimes, guess what? It's a brand new year. So what happens? We can't get Congress to get anything straight. So guess what? They probably messed up all our computers.
I
Hello.
think they did. I think they did that to me. Yeah. They can't. They can't get it together. They want to do me wrong. Okay.
But anyway, I'm so happy to have you here. I was kind of sharing a little bit about what happens when you serve a congressperson
Yes.
and when you serve in the capacity of constituent services, and who you are and who people can contact with regards to the concerns that they may have. So why don't you kind of share with the audience, to give them a little bit of background of what you've had the opportunity to do since 2019 to 2023 with regards to servicing. At the time, it was the Eastern Shore, part of Norfolk, and all of Virginia Beach, correct?
All, yes, and the peninsula. We had
And part of the peninsula. Okay.
right all the way up to Yorktown. If you go on the right side of the peninsula up to Yorktown, we it was our district, and on the left side was Representative Bobby Scott's.
Okay.
And so, one of the biggest things is when you're going back and forth with a federal agency, whether it's the VA, the Department of Education, if you've paid off loans or if your interest rate or something is going on and you're going back and forth, Social Security, your parents, or if you have disability and they're taking your money and they keep changing, well, this month you made too much, so we're going to lower your payments or anything. Or even when the stimulus, when everything happened where people were getting stimulus payments, or they say they weren't going to take child support payments out of it, and you're going back and forth and they took your money. Those are things that we help people get their money back. So when you're going back and forth with an agency, we step in and we do a congressional inquiry for you. So like I was tell like I was telling her, one of the biggest things that's going to happen this year that's coming up is tax returns. When
Mhm.
you don't get your tax returns, that's the thing that we help you with. If you haven't gotten your tax return, or you've gotten a letter from the IRS and you don't know what's going on, that's when you contact your congressional member. you know am I frozen on your end?
No, you're
Oh,
fine. I just moved
okay.
my computer.
Oh, okay. So if you contact your congressional member, it can be, you can contact your senators, either one of your senators, or you can contact your congressional member, and they can do a congressional inquiry, and they will find out what is going on. What's the holdup? Maybe there's something you forgot to sign your tax return, and they will contact them and find out what's going on and get the documentation to get your tax return for you. So a lot of times people will be at their wits' end, about to get evicted.
Uh-oh, we lost her. We lost her. She fell off again. But anyway, that's good information to know. That things that you don't even think about in terms of should I ask my congressperson about are things that they handle. One of the things that we're hoping to kind of talk about a little bit is identifying which level of government does what things. A lot of times people may go to Congress to talk about their school board when in fact school board is a local issue, and so you should either go to your school board member representative, or you can go to various departments within the school system to identify someone that can assist you with certain issues. Same thing on the state level. Um, right now, they've been working to try to, on the state level, make sure that Black cemeteries are cleaned up. That is a state issue. That is not a local issue. That is not a federal issue. That is a state issue. So we were going to try to talk to the listening audience a little bit about the different levels of government and how to work with these various levels of government in order to resolve issues. The reason why we call the house on fire is if you've been paying any attention whatsoever to the newly elected so-called majority house in the House of Representatives, you may have seen that the Republicans, and this is not a Republican or Democratic show, is just letting you know that what is going on right now is that the new majority, which is 222 Republicans, 212 Democrats, well, the 222 Republicans have not decided on who will be the House Speaker. What happens when they don't make a decision with regards to who is the Speaker of the House? They are not able to swear in our newly elected Congress people. They are also not able to make committee assignments to decide who's going to chair, who is going to be chair of committees. So when I say the house is on fire in Washington, D.C., the house is on fire. And that is because work cannot get done until the members are seated and are able to take a look at the agenda and take a look at what laws, bills, policy are being initiated and determining what they're going to be able to pass or not pass. Juanita is back. I was just giving them a briefing. I don't know if you were able to hear me.
I don't know what was. I'm going to be on my phone in a minute. I tried to be on the computer. I was like, we don't have a House of Representatives yet. We don't
Right.
have a speaker. And I guess they just don't want me to be great today. I was like, I don't know what is going on. Yes.
That person that called herself winning the election decided that we're just going to make sure that anybody that was in the old, old Congress, we're not going to let them say anything. But go
We're
ahead
not
and
gonna
talk,
let them say anything. Yes,
yeah, talk a
but
little bit about the House on fire with, uh, you know, the new majority. I think
yes,
it's like 222 votes to 212,
yes,
222 votes
212. Yes.
to
So
212. So talk
that
about
was the
that.
one. That was one thing I was watching the news this morning, and one of the representatives, Bacon, I think it was from, gosh, what I can't think of what it is. As all three African Americans sit here, he was saying, well, if they had voted, if the Democrats had voted for Representative Donalds from Florida, that they would have made history because they would have had the first African American speaker. And I was
Mm,
like, well, if six of them had voted for the African American Democratic person, then they would have had a speaker also. If it only took six to go the other way because they had 212 the other way. I was like, that didn't even make sense for him to say that. And this is
right,
the same guy who voted against hurricane relief for his people in Florida who were hit with that.
thank
And
you.
I was like, okay, house on fire. Yeah, I was like, okay, you didn't even vote for your people for hurricane relief, but we want the Democratic, the 212 to vote for him to be speaker. Yeah,
Right.
it was just, I was like, yeah, the house is really on fire. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the guy
so
that's
it's
running
just
for the
crazy.
speaker, and the guy that's running
Yeah,
for speaker could only get 202 votes, and he got 222 people who can vote for them. And out of that, he lost he
yes.
lost 10. He lost 10 and couldn't get himself across the finish line. So it's been interesting. The House is really on fire. They can't appoint committee chairpersons. They can't appoint people to committees. They can't swear in people. They can't uh, do the when it comes
The
to
work.
security, the briefings, those security briefings that people who may serve on committees like foreign
Homeland
affairs or
Security.
homeland. Go ahead. Yeah.
Any of
Have
those
y'all
committees,
those
Homeland
briefings?
Security. I mean, yes. And like they were saying, a lot of those, like Adam Schiff and all of those guys who stood up for, January 6th, who are on those committees, they said they were going to remove them from their committees. So you want those people to vote to put this person who says they're going to remove them from their committees to vote to put him as the speaker.
Right.
What kind of sense does that make? Okay, really put the house on fire.
Really put the house on fire.
Yes, that
So
makes a lot of sense.
so this is
And one
what we're
thing
dealing
people,
with.
Georgia, another thing that I said is remember 147 of those people voted against certifying that President Biden was the president.
Right.
So 147 of those that are sitting there, including Representative Rob Whitman, the only one from Virginia, that
Mhm.
said President Biden, he's talking about Pennsylvania. Let's not certify Pennsylvania's election. That those people are still sitting there, and they're like, "Hey, well, join us in certifying our person as the Speaker of the House."
Right. And you want the Dems to help you get a Speaker of the House when you've decided that you're going to vote against everything that their constituent base, along with your constituent base, have been asking for. Because a lot of the things that um, Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House, and her group voted for, everybody gets the benefit of those things. It's not okay. I'm only putting it in a Democrat state because we heard that in the past that when there were a storm, if the state didn't have either a Republican governor or if the state didn't have a legislator that was primarily Republican, we had a president that said he wasn't sending money and sending the resources to states simply because they weren't uh, a Republican state, even though those people in those states also paid taxes into the federal government just like anybody else. So house is definitely on fire. It is definitely on fire.
Oh
um
yeah, The California forest fires that they didn't want to send money to. Remember, they said they can get out there and sweep the forest fires.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the two states that pay the most in taxes that fund the rest of the country is New York and California.
Oh
Because some
yeah.
of those smaller states, they don't have the money because they don't have the jobs in those states. They're a much smaller population, and they're angry with the people who are helping to fund their local and state budgets because the money is going into their state, even though they're not paying the same type of percentages that a New York or California may be paying. So that's something that people need to know and understand. Now, one of the things that I looked at that you had when you when they're contacting the legislator, you talked about introducing bills and how important that is. So, kind of share with the audience how important it is to have a strong elected official, a strong congressperson, or a strong senator in order to introduce the type of bills that will help them in their home districts and in their cities.
One thing I want you guys to realize is we are stronger together. Just like when we sit and talk to each other, like me and Georgia and
Mhm.
Mr. Dreammaker there, when we sit and we talk about different things that we want to see enacted on the federal level. If the three of us sit and talk and we have a group that sit and talk, what we need to do, and you all need to do, is on your representative web page, there's a section that says contact me. And
Mhm.
when you contact them, that creates a list of how many people are contacting them about the same issue.
Mhm.
So when you contact them about that same issue, that lets them know that there is a big problem.
Mhm.
So I don't know how this new representative is going to do, but with us, we did a daily report to the Congresswoman. So every day we would tell her we had this many calls about this with Social Security. We
Mhm.
had this many calls about this with the VA. So what that does is that gives her a running tally of what is going on within our communities. Like someone would call us, it may be one person calling about this, and they'll tell us, well, my friend, or, we know a lot of people going through this. And I tell them, well, they're not going to do a bill because remember, it's got to go into committee, it's got to come out of committee, all these different things. But if we're just talking about it amongst our friends, but if we collectively contact our representatives, I tell my mom in Florida, I'm like, hey, mom, you write to it to your congressperson. I write to it to my congressperson. Write to it to your senators, both of your senators. Then that makes it bigger. That makes it bigger than just me sitting in the house screaming at the TV because I can't bust the TV because then I got to buy another one. So if we all collectively tell each other to contact our representatives, then that puts it on a bigger scale. So that makes, because remember, the senators have to introduce a bill and then the House introduces a bill. And then with those two bills, they come together. So when it goes to, whether it goes to the House first or the Senate first, the Senate will do their bill, and then the House, they'll get it to the House, and then the House say, okay, well, we kind of like that, but we want to change this. So they have to merge those two bills together. There's a House version and a Senate version, and then they collectively put it together before it gets finalized and then goes to the president. Then everybody agrees, the House and the Senate.
Mhm.
So that's what we have to do, is we have to make sure that it's going to go, because everybody has to have buy-in. So it's got to get co-sponsors. If you don't get a co-sponsor, then it's not going to go anywhere. But us collectively, we have to know our power, and we have to know if we all speak together and we're that driving force, because we have power. We just have to use it. And I'm telling you, the other side, they know that power. They will call our office every day.
I'm
And
sure.
I'm telling you, some of those people will call. We have a running log, and she's like, "Well, I call. Yes, ma'am. You called on this day. You had." And we would read it back, everything that you've called like 80 something times. Yes, I've got every call you've made. I've got every email you sent. I've got everything, and we would keep a running tally of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we've got, if our person isn't in, whether they're in or not, we still have to let our representatives know. And one of the things I talked to with Georgia, as far as them coming, sometimes we say, they come to our church for our votes, but we
Mm-hmm.
we have to go to those town halls. We have to sign up for those newsletters so we know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So when we see something we don't like, let them know. But the,
Absolutely.
but the biggest thing is what we have to do is write into them. I've already written. I said I put Miss on there because she's not sworn in yet, but her website is up. And I
Okay.
said, well, you were talking about inflation and you were talking about the price of gas and food in those debates. So what bill are you getting introduced?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've already written my first contact to her, and I want to know what she's going to introduce. And I put on there, I expect a response. So I'm waiting on my response. As soon as that hand is up and they get sworn in, but we don't know how many days that's going to be because they still can't get it together. How? What'd you say? House on fire?
House on fire.
The house is still on fire.
House is still on fire and nothing is getting done.
Uh,
And that's critically important. And I don't think that people understand how important it is to get your members sworn in, even if you don't like them. If they're not sworn in, they absolutely cannot do anything. No bills, no policies, nothing can be done until they are sworn in. No committee assignments, no committee chairpersons, no vice chairpersons. None of that can take place until the members are sworn in. And without a speaker of the house, no one can be sworn in, correct?
no, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the other things that you said, you were talking about, and you kind of mentioned that when you have concerns and issues, you want us to work as a united front. And as someone who absolutely loves Kwanzaa, I always like to use my time with my audience and with my guests to help them to understand how that works. One, you want to unite, unity or umoja. The other thing that you want to do is eudaima, which is collective work and responsibility. It's not one person's responsibility to make this stuff come together. It's collectively responsible for all of us to come together to make this work. And when we do that, we get a better outcome, is what you were sharing with us. And so when I'm doing these shows, I see how what Kwanzaa principles are affect us day in and day out. And if we follow those principles, whether it's with policy as it pertains to federal, state, or local level, or if we're looking at our school system and what's taking place there, if we utilize those principles, we can influence, which is what we need to do, is influence various outcomes. So I thank you for talking about that. The other thing you said in your information to me is internships. Talk to the audience about internships and how important it is to be able to become an intern, and what does it take to hopefully become an intern in one of the local Congress people office.
Yes, yes. Before I started working for Congress, it's a lot. A lot of people don't even know this. A lot of people don't know some of the things that Congress does. There's an art challenge, there's an app challenge, and then there's the internship. And the internship, you could be going to community college, or you could be going to the university. They have paid internships with the senators and with the House of Representatives. So, and what they do is they work around your schedule to with your classes and everything. And with that, you get knowledge of how Congress actually work, how what goes into everything. And one of the things people don't know is if you're going on a trip and your passport, you apply for a passport, you haven't gotten it. People contact us and we can get your passport expedited. So you can go on your trip. You like, I paid these thousands of dollars and you can't go. those are some of the things. So, we tell our interns once they leave us or whoever's worked for us, hey, if you come on these situations, no matter where you live at or whatever, call us. We got you. But it gives them a learning experience no matter what your degree is in. So you'll get an understanding of, whether it's a state level, city level, or federal level. Because every time when somebody needs help, they don't necessarily know the levels of government that it is. And if it's something that's not on our level, we direct them, we contact the state level or the city level person on their behalf and say, hey, we need you to reach out to them and help them on what they need. A lot of people contacted us with unemployment because that was the big ticket during COVID. And it's like, well, I know we fund unemployment because they hear it on the news all the time. And it's like we're the funding person, but we're not the ones who actually run that. The states run it. So we let them know, and we give our interns let them help with a lot of that so they get an understanding of how it works. But that gives the interns, when they come on board, they are able to learn how a lot of the government stuff works at the different levels. And then they also get paid a stipend as they're doing it.
Wonderful. So an intern does not have to be a political science major.
No, they don't.
Okay.
They don't.
Okay. That's good to know, because most people would think that if you're going to work in a Congress office or if you're going to work in a senator's office, that you must have some type of political science background or urban development or something that has to do with city, state, or local government. Sometimes
Right.
that you're majoring in something with regards to city, state, or local government. So that's good to know. So for the listening audience out there today, I hope that you're taking in this knowledge. Again, today we have Miss Juanita Williams. She formerly served as the Constituent Services Director for our previous Congresswoman, Elaine Luria, and she served from 2019 to 2023. So she has a wealth of knowledge that a lot of us may not have. And so we definitely appreciate you taking time out to come on the show with us today so that we can talk a little bit about what type of work is done in by Congress people, not just in the office itself, but the things that she's doing. Now, let me ask you this. Did you get to travel with her to Washington, D.C. from time to time? I know you said you worked in all three of her offices. Did that include Washington, D.C., or did that include the offices on the Eastern Shore, Virginia Beach, and on the peninsula?
I got a couple things. No, I didn't. I was in charge of those three offices.
Mm-hmm.
The people who worked in those offices. Two things I will say is, for you all that are listening, one thing as far as getting involved in campaigns, you never know who's watching you. I didn't know the Congresswoman. I met her at an event and I worked on her campaign just because I said I worked on different campaigns. I worked on her campaign. I didn't know her. I did 24 years in the Navy. We're different age levels. I'm older than her. And I have my grandson here, so I'm not going anywhere with my grandson, leaving my grandson. But the thing is, I didn't know her before I worked on her campaign. I was retired, just helping people get elected. And she came up to me. We had a party. Our group had a party, and she came up to me. She said, "I don't know what you're doing, but I want you on my team." And I was like, I wasn't looking for a job. I was like, I'm almost 2 years retired.
Hmm.
And I say that to say, you never know who's looking at you.
Right.
For you guys, you never know what in a political, helping somebody with a campaign or doing something, So if anybody's if you're helping with campaigns or doing something, you just never know where a job may come into play at, And I say that. And I went to D.C. a few times. I went for the January 6th hearing when she presented. I went to D.C., so I've got my memorabilia for our special access and everything, because I was like, this is history right here, And for somebody who served all those years in the military, I just can't believe we used to go to other countries and make sure they were okay. When I was on the USS Nimitz, we got diverted to watch China vote, and then I was like, I felt like somebody should have came and watched us vote.
Mhm.
And now just in the military, I just think, are we? The people that I serve with, I've watched how so many people have changed, and I'm like, could I serve with those people today? Because I'm
Right.
just like, would I feel safe? So it's just like a whole different environment. But I went for the January 6th hearing, and we had retreat there and everything. So we went through the Capitol. We had our retreat there last year after the January 6th, and we got to go and see where the person, Ashley Babbitt, was shot at. So we went through the whole Capitol and everything. But I didn't work there. I just ran the three offices, the caseworkers and everything. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Now, let me ask you also, when you are working in the actually in the district, how often do you interact with the Congress persons, um, staff members that are actually in the Washington, D.C. area? Is that
Oh,
something?
we interact with them daily. We interact with them daily because they're the legislative. So if when we talk to people, depending on if they need help with federal agencies or if they want some type of legislation changed. So the guys in DC, they're the ones who do the legislation. So if somebody, like I said, if you want something changed, legislatively, if somebody calls us about something, we like, oh, well, what you want is you want something that needs to be changed legislatively. So one of my things now is being retired. Every time I go to see a specialist, I have to pay $33 copay
Mhm.
as a retired Navy. And I'm like, okay, but spouses and dependents of active duty don't have to pay that. And I'm like, okay, 30, I served 24 years. Oh gosh, let me get it together. I served 24 years active duty
Mhm.
and I have to pay $33, but somebody who served 2 years, their spouse doesn't have to pay anything to go out to see a specialist. So I'm
Right.
like, they could be kicked out of the military. So I need the Defense Health Agency to get it. I need them to change that in their NDAA when they do this next NDAA, and us retirees need to be treated a little better. So that's one of my things that I'm going to be working on. So that would be something that I say, hey, I need to speak to your legislative team because I'm going to have a whole bunch of retirees that I'm working with that I need this to be that we're going to be all putting in for them to change this in this next NDAA that they're going to be doing. So that will go to the legislative team that's in DC. So everybody's in DC is the legislative team, and then they have a legislative assistant, and they're the person who answers to everybody that sends in the emails to DC.
Okay. So tell the audience, because all of us are former military, what NDAA is so that the
That's
listening
oh,
audience
I'm
will know.
sorry. That's the
That's okay.
National Defense Authorization Act.
Okay.
And that's where they start putting in their budget and everything when they start talking about how
Mhm.
much the military needs and all of the funding and different things. And
Mhm.
yeah, so everything gets put in the NDAA that they work on each year.
Right. And we hear that all the time, but a lot of times we hear it and we hear
All the
what it
acronyms.
stands for, and then we forget about it. And then, and so when there's someone here with the knowledge, always like to make sure that we help people clearly understand. Again, I tell people this show is a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, and a conversation for transformation. And if we're not providing people the right information, if we're not correcting misinformation, if we're not doing that type of work to help transform persons so that, as you mentioned earlier, helping them to become more engaged, more involved, because that's going to transform things in their personal lives, but it also can transform things in their community,
Oh
in their
yes, definitely.
neighborhood, in their cities. So always like to use this platform, you know, properly, because I don't. Um, Ms. Vaughn does not have to offer this opportunity to me. And so, we always like to send it out on YouTube and Facebook and all
Right.
the various social media, because this can be helpful for people that might live in other states or wherever. So we don't keep this information to ourselves. While we might do the show and record the show, we still want to make sure that this information is shared throughout, because it's helpful, especially in some of the areas that may not normally have a congressperson that will ever visit their community or what have you. So this is valuable information, and definitely appreciate you coming on to share this with us. Now, I'm going to ask you something about this aviation machinist mate, Chief.
Okay.
Because there might be somebody in the audience that might say, well, that's something that I like to do. And I use this platform when I hear things to introduce people to areas that maybe they hadn't thought of. Because keep in mind, we might think of being a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, and a nurse, but a aviation machinist mate may never even cross their mind. But if I have someone professional like yourself that can share that information, it might just change the minds of a few people. So kind of share that with them.
All right. So in the Navy, I've worked on various aircraft. I was the first female test cell engine operator and instructor on the USS Nimitz. That's how I came here to Virginia. I did 24 years, and me and my girlfriend, she was also, we were talking this morning, and one of the things about the military, if you want to look at retiring, you never have to work in you never have to stay at the same place. You never have to work with the same people, to do your time to retire. You can be there for 3 years. And one thing about aviation, we can do, there's a thing, sea duty and shore duty, where you have to go, for people, depending on what their rate is, they have to do ships or not do ships. Working in aviation, I can be on a ship or I can be on land and do, well, I went to Alaska for 6 months. Back in the early 90s, I went to Alaska for ADAC Alaska for 6 months and worked. So that was my sea duty, is going to my squadron. We went to Alaska, then we come back, we relieve somebody, and then we went to Tully, Greenland. So you never have to really go on a ship to do your sea duty. So that was a perks of being in aviation. And then also when you're on the ship, you can meet the squadron people, and they come out to the ship and they bring you McDonald's or they bring you something else. But back then, just working on different aircraft engines and learning all about them, and being able to test them. Once I had my mom, my daughter did a Facebook post about me being the first woman test cell operator and instructor on the USS Nimitz. And my mom asked my sister, "Is that true?" And I was like, "Mom, what make you think I would let her put that on Facebook if that wasn't true?" But we do so many things, and I'm sure you guys have too, that we just look at it as, going about life, and we don't really pass those things down to things that we should be passing down, because we're so used to just going about life. But that was one of the things that we do. And like, even working for Congress, I tell our interns when they leave us, I say, don't forget that you did work for the U.S. House of Representatives to, if you never work in Congress again, to pass that down to your future generations, that you work for the U.S. House of Representatives.
Right. And put it on your resume. Make sure, don't forget to add that to your resume and tell people. Now, I want to say I've been on the Nimitz. I want to say I've been on the JFK, and I've been on the Nimitz, and I've been on one submarine. I can't remember which one it was. Believe it or not. And look, and I have no military background. It just, I have been one of these people who have been fortunate. I worked for Xerox for a while, and I was in the area where I had to collect from the ship. And so you had to go see the supply officer to get your money. And so, and so you knew as soon as that ship got to town, because nowadays I think the military and the government pays a little faster. I think they have like that 30-day window or something. Back then, if they were out to sea, they could care less whether they paid their bills until they got back home. And so when you were in an industry where you sold the military, in our case, it was the Xerox machine, because Xerox pretty much was everywhere back in the day. Now there's all these other companies. And so I would have to go down, meet with the supply officer and get my money and bring it back so we could get our money. And so I went on one sub. That's scary because there's a big drop. There's like this huge drop from that last rung to jump down. So they had to actually lift me down because my legs was too short. The guys,
God.
of course, they slid down because they did it so much. But when it came to me, there was no way I was going to try to slide down, because even if I slid to the last rung, I was probably still another 3 feet off the.
Oh gosh, that is scary. Yes.
I wasn't trying to do that. But the ships aren't that bad. You can climb up the ships, but that was kind of scary. But I like the fact that you had the aviation. Now let me ask you this: are you allowed to say what aircraft you worked on, or do you have to be neutral and not say any aircraft in particular?
Oh, I can tell you. I started out with C1s.
Mm-hmm.
I started out in San Diego. I'm from San Diego. Started out as C1s,
Mm-hmm.
C2s. I
Mm-hmm.
left C1, C2s. I went to oh my gosh, I went to P3s. I
Okay.
left I left P3s. That was at Moffett Field, California, Mountain View, California. Left there. I went back. I went to H-60 helicopters. Those are the helicopters that you see flying around here.
Mm-hmm.
I left the H-60s. I went to USS Nimitz.
Mm-hmm.
I left the Nimitz and I came back here. I worked at AMD Norfolk. Once I left there, I went to
So
VAW.
you did a lot of aircrafts.
Yeah, I went to VAW 126. Those are the eyes in the skies. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
E2s, the
Mm-hmm.
E2Cs. Those are the ones with the domes. I
Okay.
left there. I was a safety chief on the USS Nassau.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left of Nassau, I went to HM14, and those are the H-53s. Those are the ones that did the Katrina rescues, most of the Katrina rescues.
Okay.
And I retired from there.
Okay. Well, guess what? We're coming up on the close of this show, and I am so thrilled, even after all the little technical difficulties, that you were able to be up here today. And if you just do some final closing remarks, we're going to close out for today. And again, thank you so much, Juanita. I hope this information that we provided today is helpful to members of the community. Thank you.
I just want to thank you all for inviting me, and I just didn't know what I was going to do after Congress, after everything changed, and just being able to come here the week that I lost my job from there. I just go back into retirement, but this is such a refreshing thing, and I just want everybody to know, please reach out, because Congress has so much. Before I started working for Congress, I didn't know these different things that they offer,
Mhm.
and there is so much that we pay these people money to represent us, and we should be getting our full benefits from them. And I want to be a part of helping people to understand what they can do for us and what they should be doing for us. And any way that I can help, I will help. And I just want to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. And I do thank you all again for letting me come on here with you all.
Well, Juanita, we want to thank you so very much. This has been very informative. Again, this is GA for Justice. We do this every week, every Thursday at 12 o'clock noon. Again, Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first show of 2023. I hope you were excited as I have been to listen to the information that has been brought to us today. We're looking forward to next week. I got a hopefully real exciting guest next week. I don't want to drop it yet, but but I am so looking forward to this year. I see so many opportunities. I'm sure you have been keeping up with what's going on the local level with changes in election systems, and the new city council members have been seated. We're excited about that. We still have work to do because guess what? You can elect people to office, but that does not always mean that the people you elect are your best friends or that the people you elect are willing to work on your behalf. So I want people to know that just like Juanita shared with us earlier, pick up the phone, call these people, let them know, push, pressure, do what it takes in order to get them to work on things that you care about so that we can change things here in Virginia Beach. And finally, there's an election. January the 10th, 2023, there's a state Senate election. It's a special election. We want to ask everybody to go to the polls and vote. It is critically important that we tell all of our friends. The 7th district it covers Aragona, Chimney Hill, Green Run. It covers J Gardens. It covers Campus East, Lake Edwards. So if you're in any of those areas in the city of Virginia Beach, know that you can go and vote and elect people that will represent your concerns, your needs. And again, I want to thank our special guest today, Miss Juanita Williams. And we just talked about the house being on fire in Washington, D.C. So I don't know who's going to put out the fire, but if we get fortunate, maybe they can convince some of those so-called moderates to vote for Mr. Hakeem Jeffries, because I think he is outstanding. And I'm partial to Mr. Jeffries. I've watched him over the years. You got something you want to close out with? I see your hand.
I just want to say they did 10 votes for Donalds again, so they still on fire. They about to go. They on their 7th ballot, and they just voted 11 for him. I don't know whose name they up to, but they got 11 for Donalds again. So they about to go to an 8th. They on whichever ballot they on. They about to go to an 8th ballot because if it's more than 5 for him, then that's too many. Right. Yeah, so they probably at the D's right now. So they done already got 11 for Donald's. So yeah, they going back. They're still on fire.
They're still on fire. Still haven't selected a Speaker of the House, and they so wanted to be a majority, and they can't even select a Speaker of the House. But they
got the numbers, and they have the numbers.
Exactly. Well, again, thank you, and Henderson. We're looking forward to next week.
No doubt, no doubt. It's always
I will be listening.
Yeah. And once again, you've been watching and listening to GA for Justice with the former president of the NAACP, Georgia Allen, and her guests. Want to thank you, Juanita Williams, and hope that we can share this information on all our platforms with our friends and family. And the only way we're going to solve the problem in our community is unity. It ain't, until they can be able to work together, until we can be able to work together, our young people are just lost because we didn't used to be that way. But this is why this show is here, to document stuff that people are saying that they're going to do, but they ain't doing. But in order to do it, you got to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Once again,
that's it. Goodbye, everybody.
All right.
See you next week.